The content in this podcast is both graphic and the property of the original authors. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devin Zahn, and welcome to episode 5 of Tales for the Dark, Creepy Internet Stories. We got another great show for you guys today. We got another creepypasta, another true crime, and another cryptid deep dive, I should say. Without further ado, let's get into the opening stuff, starting with, as always, our dad jokes. So I have another 4 for you guys today, also from countryliving.com. So starting with the first one, here we go. Did you hear the rumor about butter? Well, I'm not going to spread it. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, that's definitely a dad joke. Alright, moving into the second one. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired. Yeah, I'm going to have to use these on my kid someday. Alright, number 3. What did one hat say to the other? Stay here, I'm going on ahead. That's pretty decent too, I gotta admit. And finally, for our dad jokes this episode, why did Billy get fired from the banana factory? He kept throwing away the bent ones. That's pretty decent. Yeah, that's pretty good. Is that it? Oh, no, I'll do one more. Dad, can you put my shoes on? No, I don't think they'll fit me. Okay, alright. So we actually had some pretty decent dad jokes this time around. So before we get into the actual taste test, there is a couple things I wanted to discuss in terms of house cleaning. Of course, we'll get to the new listeners in the end of the episode. Okay, so I'm starting a second podcast alongside my sibling, my sister, Brittany Zahn, and it is actually going to be premiering pretty shortly after this episode releases. We actually recorded it the other night, and she's actually in the process of editing it, so that will be up shortly as well, and that one's called That Spooky Murder Show. It's a little different from what you're used to when listening to this podcast. It's not just me talking to myself and basically reading a bunch of horror stories for you guys. It really is more of a conversational piece, but on the same topics. I'm not doing the same exact topics I'm doing on my show. We're choosing different ones, lesser known ones, and we basically discuss it as we go through it. We make jokes, we swear in that one. I don't like to really swear unless it's in the story on this one, but so it's a fun time, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. I will post the link to the Facebook page when the first episode for that podcast is up, as well as a link to the actual Facebook page. That's That Spooky Murder Show. And we already do have a Facebook page, so if you're feeling ambitious before we actually post the first episode, feel free to give us a look-see up on Facebook there. So, yeah, without further ado, let me get into the taste test. Today we have a couple of decent ones. Starting with our food, which is hot wasabi flavored peas. It's from the Chinese section at Meijer, so I'm very excited to try this. I'm gonna pause the recording for a second so you don't have to listen to the loud bag opening. So I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, so I got the bag open, and these hot wasabi peas are pretty much what I expected they would be. They look like pretty much freeze-dried peas, but apparently they have a wasabi flavor. I have a second taste test, but it's a little different than our usual, so I'm save that for last because I probably need to go wash this down. So, our first taste test, wasabi hot flavored peas. Let's try. Oh, they're crunchy. Oh my god. Oh my god. You definitely get the wasabi. That was a half one though, so let me try a full one. Some of these are cracked in half. Yep, that's stronger. Oh, yep, that's hot. It's really hot. Oh my god, I'm sweating. They're not bad though. I gotta say, it's not what you would typically expect out of wasabi, because you know wasabi is like nasal clearing, like hot, like horseradish like stuff. But this is kind of more of a subtle flavor. It is a little hot, but it's not enough to kind of make you say, I'm not trying that anymore. I'm actually having another one real quick. That is actually really good. Zero trans fat, BPA free, whatever the heck that means. So, that is our first taste test. What would I give the wasabi flavored peas? Really good. Wasn't as hot as I was expecting, but the flavor's there. I do like wasabi myself, so personally, out of 10, I'm gonna give that a solid 7. I would definitely eat that again. It's not something I'd buy every time, but the flavor's there. Really good. Okay, that moves us on to our second taste test, which is actually something really unique, also from the Chinese aisle at our local Meijer here. It actually has a marble in it. I had to push a marble into the glass to drink this, and it kind of sits halfway down, so I don't know how this is going to go. But this is another Chinese drink. I keep doing that, sorry. This is Kimura Fun Marble Drink Ramoon Carbonated Soft Drink, and it's lychee flavor. I don't know if it's lychee or lychee, but it's a fruit that grows in China. So, and it's cool. You actually put a marble inside the bottle. That's awesome. So let's give this a shot. We just gotta take a sip of this and see how we feel. And warning on the side: do not swallow green opener, because yeah, you literally had to push the marble in to open it, which took a long time. Here we go. That is actually not bad. Wow. Wow. I was expecting something a lot more sweetened, because I've had lychee vapes before. But this is fantastic. We need more of this in America, man. You guys over there, you got it going on. Oh my god, that is delicious. Okay, so with that, um, before we get into it again, I just want to plug one more time. If you guys haven't joined the Facebook page yet, it's Tales for the Dark Creepy Internet Stories. If you see a picture of a tree with a jack-o'-lantern face in it, you got the right page. Also, check us out on Instagram by the same name, as well as email me with your suggestions and comments and your critiques at talesforthedarkcis@gmail.com. So without further ado, we are going to get into our stories today. Again, we have one creepypasta, one true crime, and one cryptid deep dive. So, starting with the creepypasta story, I think you guys are going to like it. Just let me pull it up on my phone. It's actually a really cool one by Disney, and it's one that's kind of haunted me for a long time. This is one of the first creepypastas that I've ever come across. So, this one is called Room Zero, and this is credited to the author Slime Beast and off the website Creepypasta.Org. So, without further ado, let's get into it. It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation, and I'm sure you can understand why. A lot has been going on since my last post. I've received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who read my first-handed accounts of Mulwilgill's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney. I want to thank everyone who mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by a larger power. However, for every nuked topic or disappearing blog post, it seems like 100 more have been popping up. This is something they'll have to face. There's no turning back for them, none for me either. I'm definitely being followed. For the first month or two, I chalked it up to paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off. hair standing on the back of my neck, and everything. The first one, or rather, the first one I was actually able to spot, was a telephone worker milling around my apartment complex. He was middle-aged, doggy, dressed just as you'd expect, but something just seemed off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place, not somebody who was comfortable doing his routine job. I followed him around a corner, only to lose him there. When I turned around to go back home, there he was, staring directly at me, about 10 feet behind me, expressionless and cold. "Explorin'?" he asked. That was all he said, and there was an accusing tone to his voice. Tell me what blue-collar phone jockey does that? I guess that's the worst part. Never feeling safe, never feeling alone. That and the occasional Disney merchandise left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox, a Disney Adventures magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere. 3 circles, 1 big, 2 small, in the silhouettes of the famous mouse's head. I started keeping a running list of Mickeys I've found. Coffee cup rings on my coffee table, 1 big, 2 small, colored glass bottles left on the doorstep, viewed from the top down, same thing, all red. Graffiti on the wall on my way to work, a huge earth, small sun, and a moon in the proper locations. They're everywhere. People have emailed me about this as well. If you repost anything I have to say, you're gonna start finding those sons of bitches yourself. I guarantee it. The best one by far, the one that actually made me laugh because of the horror of it all, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was taken aback at first, walking through the parking garage, keeping my eye out for anyone following me. The outline seemed a perfect match for, well, a murder victim. You're probably familiar with it if you read my past posts. Written in yellow, paint, I'm sure, it was a single word. Retract. The only good thing that has come out of all of this is that I know I'm not the only one who's seen something they shouldn't have. I'm not going to give you their names because, well, if I have to tell you why, you haven't been paying attention. Quote, researcher goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun, enjoy the rides, etc. He's looking for the gas cots. There's been a long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size, men and women, adults, children, and teens down. All wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back when, Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would then merge into crowds and then disappear. Later on, the gas masks caused folks to draw other conclusions, and reports of possible terrorists and bombers, they started flowing. All of those reports most likely went straight into the trash can. I know I can't find any sign of any such occasions reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. Researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw any attention to himself. He'll just ask 3 or 4 families if they've seen his friend who's wearing a funny mask. He has yet to see a gas cot for himself, though on one occasion, a child pointed him toward Frontier Town. As he raced through the crowd, he heard a single voice ahead cry out, "Mommy! I want a Goofy air mask too!" A fellow I'll call lifeguard worked in a Disney water park from 2001 through 2003. He stood at the top of a huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed the kids through one at a time, telling them over and over again to be safe, keep their arms in, and, well, so on. One day, as he tells it, this fat kid goes down the tube and doesn't come out the other end. He sent 2 or 3 kids after the whole thing, and and it moves steady as a clip. So naturally you'd expect that if Fatty got stuck, the kids that followed him would get stuck too. Not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out on the other side, cheering and splashing like nothing's wrong. The lifeguard shuts down the slide, much to the aggravation of the kids waiting. Before he can go through any Disney strict procedures, splash! The fatty finally comes out. Staff members pulled the kid out of the water. He sank like a stone when he hit, his skin already blue and his eyes wide. All he would say was, "No face kids," and "Stop squeezing." The kid was okay, in case you're wondering. He got carted off to the medical center after that. When the lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stink about how it clearly wasn't safe. Despite his complaints, though, he was threatened with firing and begrudgingly opened up the slide again. From that point on, he kept a closer eye on the kids. Every so often, they'd come out in the wrong order. Never as stunned as the fat kid, but always with a vague look of concern. A dreamy half stupor that would have seemed as if they were trying to figure out what was reality. They'd take on some water and choke a bit. They'd never come back up to ride again. I read his emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted him to share his own story, but in the end, he didn't want to expose himself that way. I can't say I blame him. Snow White, which wasn't the actual role she played, was a character in the park. She had a nice little tidbit for me. You know what happens when a costume employee drops dead in a suit? Something like that. Like, 1 second he's taking a picture with little Jimmy, and the next he's had a fatal stroke? A second costume mascot in the area has to sit with the corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cart the body away in a discreet manner. All the while, patrons have no idea they're sitting with a dead body for photo ops. Feel free to check your photo albums at this point. That was bad, but another fellow janitor went completely off the creepy charts, if you will. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet. 3 stories worth, actually. Anything and everything you can imagine is down there, for use of the employees. They're called utilidors, or utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you don't see a character out of place or janitors wandering around the park. They pop in and out of these hidden doors and travel a concealed way around town without your knowing. The janitor told me something that might be common knowledge, but was nonetheless news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There's one above Cinderella's castle. There's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I mean, they're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and much more. All behind doors built right into the whimsical facades you pass by without a second look. Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the cash to join the exclusive club, by the way, you probably don't, then you'll have access to it and much more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney Company calls these places dark zones. Spots where the squeaky clean visage of Mickey Mouse gives way to the drinking, drugs, and yes, sex. Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, with a few gray zone utilidors between. As far as the janitor has said, it wasn't always that way though. It was more of a slow decline and the gradual relaxation of social norms within that elite group. The reason he knows all of this, you may have already guessed. He cleans it. After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, the janitor moved up from a park attendant to one of the dark zone cleaning crew. Now, before you get some satanic human sacrifice vision in your head, the janitor saw nothing of the sort. Lots of empty alcohol bottles. Yes, used condoms scattered like deflated New York balloons. Oh yeah, he cleaned up his share of blood, piss, and vomit. Yeah, but it was all down to the unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult behavior. At least that's how he sees it in retrospect. All that trash, that profane shit, went into a furnace and mingled with the smoke of a quaint cottage's chimney. If you've been to Disney World, you've breathed ultra-condensed sin. Backing up this information was Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment, with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. Hammer worked around the Disney World Park, doing demolition and construction. At one point, he approached a superior regarding some strange construction plans. There was wide, rectangular areas marked off on the blueprints, about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed, and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super fucking purposefully in the dark. He didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to know about it, and ended the conversation with this space intentionally left blank. Hammer didn't get it. The area seemed a waste of space, and it was directly conflicting with the work his team had been given. He started poking around the area on his off time, finding only a derelict steel door and a great span of concrete just beyond. It was a supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon after, Hammer started picking gascots out of the crowds. Unlike all other reports, the people, the things, would stand out in full view of the guy. They'd cluster together in the distance, or they'd just be pressed against the wall when he turned a corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down by a hunter and can't flee anymore. The gas masks, the Disney character faces with filters jammed in. He noted that they seemed wet on the inside, like condensation on a car window. Tiny beads of water glimmered behind the glass, making it impossible for any of them to actually see. Probing further, Hammer started asking questions of anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He hit dead ends throughout until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in a restaurant on Main Street. She'd been there since way back, and though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell. Hammer asked about the empty space, and then about the gas-masked customers, and at first he thought he would receive the same non-answers he'd gotten so far. She was quiet, eerily quiet. "Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed to her cheek as if she were a little girl fearing a father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another hidden room just like the apartments in Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the park set it apart from any of the fun dark zones. It was a bomb shelter. Room 0 was built to withstand a massive attack, be it conducted by foreign or domestic enemies. Room 0 was to be stocked with enough rations to feed the entire park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and it housed a smaller yet lavish panic room of sorts for Disney's higher-ups. During World War II, official Disney gas masks were actually produced for children to wear in the event of an attack. The idea was that it would be less scary for kids if Mickey's face was emblemized on the wartime safety device. Yes, I know the obvious problems with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks as well. Whether they cared about the fears of children or just callous branding, the things found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that kids would then be frightened by the gas masks their parents wore, and so all masks, adult and children, were made to comply to these insane standards. Ida described it as treating a wound with lemon juice. None of this explained what Hammer had been seeing, though. Not only the seemingly supernatural appearances, but the emptied-out room as well. "I've been there," he explained. "There's nothing but a cement floor and 4 walls." "No, Ida shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You've been on top of it. Someone or something sounded the alarm one day when the park was at full capacity. The warning was clear. It was supposedly an air attack. Security ushered everyone down, and down into the tremendous shelter. There, they were ordered to put on their masks and hunker down for the duration of the assault. Everything was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, and so they were thankful in a way for this strange measure of safety. Then the first scream rang out. Hey! A man shouted. Quit pinching! Waves of shrieks and yelps ripped through the crowd from one wall to the other, back and forth. Who's running around? Settle down! Someone hollered. Who's laughing? This isn't funny. Ow! Who stepped on my foot? Despite security guards urging to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd became more and more agitated until finally, after nearly an hour of madness, the lights flickered, then died. What followed could only be described as utter chaos. In the dark, only the walls of the young and anguished cries of adults could be heard in a massive, swelling din that bloodied the ears of all within that black echo chamber. A group of staff and a select few patrons made it out of the door, ready to face the war above rather than the insanity below. What they found, of course, was a desolate yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through silent storybook towns. Upon returning to room 0, the few who stood at the top of the steel staircase that led down into the pitch blackness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended that staircase, despite the begging of those she left above. She reached the reinforced doors, herself now awash in darkness and hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the mocking, raspy voice was at the back of the bomb shelter or if it was right in front of her face. Shut the door, dear! You're letting out the cold! Gripped by terror, she did just that. Within days, the entire thing, shelter, staircase, all of it, was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above its ceiling were removed, creating the large, empty space. They're all still down there, Ida told Hammer. Down there with whoever that was. You might notice I've used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story. Accidental fall, supposedly, after getting out of bed to turn on a light. Such a company devotee, the paper reported, that her entire bedroom was covered with Mickey silhouettes. Alright, that was our first story of this episode. That was our creepypasta story, and, well, what do I think about it? Content-wise, this is probably the scariest creepypasta I've read so far on this podcast. With that being said, you notice how I stumbled through it a lot, and I apologize, but that is not my fault. Honestly, I am going to be grammar police on this one. A lot of this did not make sense in terms of grammar-wise. Like, I paused a lot of times because I was trying to figure out a way that I could say what he's trying to get across without sounding like an imbecile. And that's not insulting the author at all. This was honestly a fantastic story. Nonetheless, it's just probably wasn't proofread before it was posted. So, content-wise, this was a very, very great story. This, like I said, this is probably one of the stories that has inspired me to actually get this podcast started. I just wanted to wait a little while to actually do it. And the reason is, the idea of this concept is terrifying, but it could also be true. It's just towards the end of the story, it starts to seem a little more like B-rated horror movie-ish, albeit very creepy nonetheless. But the fact that this happened during like World War II and the Cold War, it was very conceivable to think that Disney would have a bunker in place just in case someone attacked. That is a massive park. And if that city were attacked in some sort of nuclear event or air raid or something like that, think of the casualties. They probably did have something in place to kind of protect the majority of people, the patrons and stuff like that. Um, so the thing is with these gas masks. Oh my god, that is so creepy. Making a gas mask out of your favorite Disney character, it's like, even though the pictures I posted are in black and white, I feel like life with those things should be black and white. That is the creepiest and discerning thing I've ever seen in my life, or read about for that matter. And this mysterious thing that was in the bunker with all of the patrons that started, messing with them and eventually killing them, presumably, that would be a huge nope for me. And I'm glad, if this story does have any facts to it, that it did get bricked up. Now, when I say fact, this is actually tagged as reality and locations. So, I don't know if he's insinuating that this is actually a true thing. I really doubt it, since it is a creepypasta, and creepypastas are 9 times out of 10 fictional. But I do think there is truth to some of the things in here. I would definitely believe Disney is hiding secrets, and they do have the authority and the monopoly power to kind of do whatever the heck they want at this point. And for that matter, I'm going to say it now. Please do not come after me, Disney. I am simply reading a story. I will definitely say it's fake if you think I should. But no, I think this actually, in all seriousness, I think this could be true to a point. Not all of it, but some of this does seem conceivable. Now, for a score, out of 10, what would I give it? I don't know. It's kind of hard to say for this one. Grammar-wise, it's probably going to lower the score. But this is one of my all-time favorites, and maybe I'm biased, but score-wise, I'm going to have to give it an 8 out of 10. It lost a point there for the grammar and the inconsistency of that grammar, but 8 for the fact that it, like I said, it's one of my favorites. I cannot not give it a good score. So that is our creepypasta story. So I'm going to pull up our true crime story next here on my phone, and you guys are going to enjoy this one too, because it actually inspired the movie from Alfred Hitchcock in 1960 called Psycho, and it inspired the character you all know and don't probably love, Norman Bates. So this is the story of Ed Gein. Ed Gein has gone down in history as one of the most infamous serial killers ever. But like others that we have covered, not everybody knows the full extent of this man's spiral to evil deeds. A little known fact is that Ed Gein inspired several horror movie characters such as Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill. He is one of many serial killers, but his crimes were so heinous, it was the inspiration for several Hollywood films. Ed Gein's nickname was the Butcher of Plainfield, and it's reported that even from an early age, he was always a little off. Ed Gein never fit in too well at school. His fellow classmates and teachers found him to act strangely and be usually shy. He would burst into random bits of laughter, appearing to be lost in his own mind. To this, the school placed blame on his mother, who would punish Ed if he tried to have a social life. It was for this reason that Ed Gein would spend most of his early years in solitary. Both Ed and his brother Henry were punished for attempting to have a social life at all. They would be confided to their farm, and their mother would often read them stories from the Bible. She would preach frequently how evil the world was, and that all women were sex workers. She also proclaimed that immoral actions and drinking were, quote, instruments of the devil. Up to the age of 38, Ed and his brother worked in the fields of their farm. They burned away marsh vegetation, which led to an uncontrollable fire. The local firemen were called, and after they left, and after the fire was extinguished, Ed then reported his brother missing. That was also the night Henry's body was discovered, face down in the nearby marsh. He passed away from asphyxiation. The police originally blamed Henry for the fire, but they soon discovered that the bruises on his head led to them concluding he had been killed before the fire. With little to no evidence, police, even though they suspected Ed Gein, were forced to eliminate him as a suspect. Henry's death was deemed an accident. Investigators would later claim that Ed had been responsible for Henry's murder, but could he have been responsible? After Henry's death, Ed's mother passed a few years later. Gein then renovated the family farmhouse. However, his renovation seemed especially peculiar. He ended up boarding up every room that his mother had occupied and set up his bed in a room just off of the kitchen. The upkeep didn't last, as Gein would leave the house in shambles. In his time in solidarity on his farm, Ed Gein became focused on death cult magazines as well as Nazi cannibal stories. Even so, he spent a majority of his time alone. Until in November 1957, the town hardware store owner had vanished. Her name was Bernice Warden, and she was last seen the night before she was reported missing. This was after her shop continued to remain closed. It just so happens her son, Frank, was a local deputy and was called to the scene. As he entered the store, he found bloodstains on the floor as well as the cash register open, leading to the idea this may have been a robbery gone wrong. Upon investigation, Frank told police that Gein had been in the store the night before and mentioned he would be back in the morning to pick up a gallon of antifreeze. That claim rang true, as Ed did return to the store the following day, purchasing some antifreeze. This was the last sale made by Bernice. Ed Gein was arrested and his house was searched. They were expecting to find Bernice's body, but what they found was so much more gruesome. What they found was what inspired later horror movies such as The Chainsaw Massacre and Silence of the Lambs. Ed's home was literally filled with human body parts. There were bones, which were both in pieces and whole, skulls were impaled on his bedposts, and he even made kitchen utensils out of human bones, and many of his household belongings were reported to be made from human skin. Police found chairs which were made with human skin as well as a wastebasket made from the same material. They also found leggings, masks, belts, window shades, a corset, and a lampshade, which were all made from human skin. Among the carnage, authorities found several dismembered body parts, such as fingernails, noses, and genitals. Bernice Warden's decapitated body was found too. Her head was hung up in a burlap sack and was hung up in a plastic bag near the stove. Her body was reported to have been hung upside down and, quote, gutted like a deer. Equally brutalized, police also stumble upon the dismembered body of Mary Hogan. Ed Gein was taken in, and when confronted, he folded almost immediately. He claimed to have visited over 40 separate graves across 3 separate graveyards with the intent to exhume bodies, while all the while in, quote, a dazed-like state. It was also revealed at this time the true motives of Gein, and they were disturbing, to say the least. According to reports during the interrogations, Gein had claimed he had began to create a, quote, woman's suit soon after his mother died. This was an effort to literally embody her, and this was what inspired Robert Bloch's novel and Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 classic film, Psycho. Even with so many bodies and body parts found in his home, Ed Gein was only charged with Bernice Warden's murder. Not surprisingly, Gein would go on to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. He was later found unfit to stand trial and transferred to a hospital for the criminally insane. He was soon diagnosed with schizophrenia. Eventually, after doctors gave the green light, Gein was taken to trial again, but like the first trial, he was deemed unfit due to his mental status. He was sent to Mendota Mental Health Institute, where he would be confined for the rest of his life, and that's exactly what happened. On July 26, 1984, Ed Gein died at the age of 77 due to complications from cancer. The horrific deeds of Ed Gein go down in history as one of the most disturbing crime sprees in history. His crimes inspired some of the most famous classic horror films and novels, but that doesn't take away the terrifying truth. Ed Gein disrespected the dead and killed many, and his victims will never be forgotten. Alright, that's my research on Ed Gein. Of course, I didn't cover all of it, and this is a very short story for this episode, but I covered the most important parts. I feel like it's just that I feel our other stories are much longer this episode, so I wanted to keep this concise and keep it to the parts that are juicy. So, Ed Gein. What do I think of this guy? Well, to be honest, this guy honestly inspired so much in Hollywood that even himself is glorified in a way. What does that mean for me? I still think the guy's a monster. A lot of people kind of see him as the inspiration for those movies that I mentioned in my research, and I get that. It created some great Hollywood flicks, but don't glorify the guy. Glorify the guy, I should say. This guy was a monster. He literally made a meat suit to mimic his mother after she died because he was so obsessed with her. Does that not scream Norman Bates to anyone? As usual, I'm not going to give a score on the true crime aspect of this podcast, so I will leave it up to your judgment, but my personal judgment, as always, I don't give sympathy to killers. So, for the 5th episode in a row, shocker, I think this guy's a monster. It's plain and simple. I mean, he had to dig up so many bodies, fresh bodies, or have killed so many people to make these furniture, kind of like human leather furniture items. It's sickening. This is Jeffrey Dahmer on a whole new level. This guy inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, you have to be a pretty sick mother effer to be able to do that. It's not a good thing. You're not famous, you're infamous. Infamous means you're bad. So, all in all, I think Ed Gein is probably one of the sickest guys I've researched, although he is one of the shortest stories I put together so far, so I'm kind of disappointed in myself for that. I just couldn't find enough information based off of just web searches and stuff. But I want to know what you guys think, as always. So let me know your thoughts. I will probably be revisiting this at some point in the future. So if you guys have any extra information on Ed Gein, please send it my way, because you'd be surprised how hard it is to find information on Google. And I know that's probably a stupid statement to make, but it was true. I couldn't find anything. I found a lot more on a 1700s killing that a listener suggested. So let me know what you guys think, whether it be comments, again, email, it's talesforthedarkcis at gmail.com, or on my Facebook page, which is Tales for the Dark Creepy Internet Stories. So with that, we're going to be moving on into our third and final story of this episode, which is going to be the Cryptid story, and I think this one's going to creep you guys out as well. And this is another story that I've really kept a close eye on as I've studied the paranormal throughout my entire life. This is the story of the Black-Eyed Kids. The Black-Eyed Kids have been the subject of intrigue and terror experienced far and wide. Several reports of first-hand experiences with these cryptids occurred during Halloween, but accounts of running into the black-eyed kids also indicate that the timing of these creepy kids' sudden appearances can happen at any time. But most of these first-hand encounters share very similar details. In the evening, residents will hear a knock on the door. Upon answering it, they come face to face with a child, reportedly aging from 8 to 13, although some unique run-ins tell they can appear a bit older. The child has black eyes resembling those of demons from the CW show Supernatural. It's debated whether it's just their eyes that influences a sense of dread, but it is widely believed to be the aura they give off. They usually appear to be dressed normal, but some accounts say the kids are dressed in outdated clothing. Rarely, witnesses report seeing talon-like feet, but other than that, they appear normal. And that's what the most terrifying part is. Black-eyed kids have been around for longer than you'd think. The earliest and most notable documented experience occurred in 1996 to a man named Brian Bethel. Bethel worked as a journalist in Abilene, Texas. I hope I got that pronunciation right. In Brian's report, he had been out one night sitting in his vehicle in a parking lot near the local movie theater. He had pulled into the lot to write a check quickly. Being focused on writing the check, he didn't notice two young kids approach his window. In fact, he didn't notice them until the older boy tapped on his window. As Bethel rolled down the window, he was hit with an intense sensation of fear, for which he had no idea why. The older boy spoke up first, saying that they wanted to see a movie but forgot their money at home, and if Brian would give them a ride. The kids assured Bethel that it wouldn't be a long trip. They didn't have a gun, and they were just kids. Unnerved by the strange assurances, Ryan Bethel also noted that the last showing for the night had already started, and the movie would be almost over by the time they'd return. This is when Brian broke eye contact with the two kids, encompassed again in the sense of terror in the kids' eyes, which had turned to black. After making up some excuses as to why Bethel wasn't able to give them a ride, the kids became infuriated. Banging on the car window, fearing for his safety, he pulled out of the lot, and has never seen them again to this day. He swears his experience with the black-eyed kids is real to this day. Especially with sites and media like creepypastas and other fictional stories popping up surrounding the topic of black-eyed kids, it's easy to be skeptical of what's a real encounter and what's fiction. One piece of evidence to say Bethel's story could be real would be that his story predates the startups of those websites. As the story began to blow up, more and more people came forward with their own run-ins with the creepy cryptids. But the scariest part is that they are seen internationally, with some first-hand accounts dating back to 1950. It is such a widely known legend in other countries that a movie based off the Black-Eyed Kids was released in 2015. Personally, I've seen it, and I'm not that impressed, to be honest. It does not follow the lore at all. Legend says that the kids are more likely to appear to someone that already knows about them or has researched them. So I'm very sorry if I've sicked some black-eyed kids on you guys. Here is another first-hand account from the Black-Eyed Kids Stories Reddit. Okay guys, this happened to me and my wife 3 years ago, around 1 a.m. in this location after exiting a movie. That day, we were pretty broke. I just had money for the movies, but not for the parking. Here in Mexico, all the public parking lots cost. So we decided to park the car behind the shopping mall in a back alley. When we were out of the movie, the shopping mall access to the back alley was closed, so we had to walk our way up to there. When we were about to arrive to the car, a small kid looking around 6 or 7 ages old pulled my shirt from behind, asking for some spare change. This is something really common in Mexico. There are tons of beggars everywhere. I said, "Sorry, kid, I'm broke. I have no spare change." The situation smelled fishy, so I opened the car with the remote key and made signs to my wife to enter the car fast. The kid asked again. The whole time he was looking to the floor, and it was really, really dark in this alley, so I wasn't able to see his face clearly. I was using my phone flashlight to see around. That's when something makes my radar go crazy. I remember the hour I see on my watch. 1:33 a.m. In my city, no bigger kids are out at that time, especially in an alley like that, unless they're trying something sketchy, like robbing you or worse. Without looking, I rushed inside my car and placed the locks in it. That's when, while viewing the rearview mirror, I saw it staring directly at us. His eyes were like a void, a deep dark black that made all of my body enter into a fight or flight stance. A smile so evil that it got my heart racing incredibly fast. He ran next to my door and knocked on the glass while staring directly at me, asking for money over and over again. He tried to open the door by pulling the handle restlessly. As soon as he left the handle alone for a second, I turned on the car and made a run for our safety. The kids started running behind us, almost at the same speed of the car, while screaming at us. Finally, we reached a highly transited avenue, and the kid was nowhere to be seen. Needless to say, my wife and I were scared shitless. From time to time, we drive by there at 1 to 3 a.m. to try and find the kid again. We've never seen him. Also, I would like to add the public illumination service doesn't work on that alley, which was a really hard thing that we saw the kid. So, AMA anything. My wife was there too. She also saw the eyes of that kid. Jesus, it gives me nightmares up to this day. Alright, so that was the Reddit story. So, the last thing I'm going to say before I get into the second and last story that I'm going to say, the last personal experience, is that legend also says if someone does let this inside their house or car, rumor is some kind of health scare will affect anyone else inside, even potentially death. So, I know this is all fun to a lot of people, but I definitely believe in cryptids, so if you do ever encounter this thing, do not engage it at all. Shut the door in its face. If you see black eyes are never a good thing, so yeah. So I'm gonna get into the next story here, another one from Reddit. This one is from Reddit user Dear Ghouls, and it's entitled, I Let One Inside My Home. I posted this elsewhere, and a kind commenter told me about this subreddit. I thought you would enjoy my story. I'm a 27-year-old female who was home alone on a Thursday night, February 4th to be exact. I live with my boyfriend, 28, but he was at work until late that night. He is a bartender, so he doesn't get home until like 4 in the morning. It was around 10 at night. I had already eaten dinner and was watching a movie in the spare room of our apartment when I heard a knock at the door. I have a friend who comes over unannounced fairly regularly and even has his own house key, but the door was double locked, so I got up without thinking and unlocked and opened the door. I was confused when, instead of my friend, there was a girl standing there. She was maybe 8 or 9 years old and wearing house shoes. Hi, I said, as she mumbled something in return that I couldn't quite hear. What was that? I asked. My mom. I need to call my mom. Your mom isn't here? My dad. I need to call my dad. Can I use the phone? I was a little dazed and confused, but the strangest part was my heart was absolutely racing. I was absolutely terrified, and I'm not sure why. I hesitated and almost told her no, but I also knew if she really did need help and I turned her away, she would likely go across the hall instead, and my neighbors don't seem the most kid-friendly. So I said sure. I told her she could step inside while I find my phone because it was freezing and she was dressed for summer. When I found my phone and handed it to her, she dialed a number and then started speaking in another language for just a minute. I'm not sure which, maybe Spanish, but I didn't recognize any of the words. She spoke for maybe 30 seconds and then hung up and was just standing there. Was that him? I asked. She just looked at me, confused. Who? Your dad? Oh, right. At this point, she was seriously frightening me out, to the point where I just wanted to avoid looking her in the face, so I walked over to my cat, who was half hiding behind a chair, and just tried to distract myself and pet her. The girl dialed a different number, spoke in the same foreign language for maybe 15 seconds, and then hung up. After that, she basically shoved the phone back in my hand, shouted, "Thanks," and then literally ran out the front door. I was left just standing there, confused as hell, and uneasy in the pit of my stomach. I walked the 6-ish feet to my door to lock both deadbolts, and as I turned away from the door, there was another knock. I looked through the peephole, and it was a man, maybe late 40s, in one of the work outfits for the building maintenance team of my apartment. Oddly, I didn't recognize him, even though I lived in this complex for over 3 years and had thought I had met all the maintenance men. I talked to them regularly because their office and storage shed is right at my front stairs where I park my van. I also found it kind of strange that anyone from the team was there still and so late at night. Well, they're usually supposed to get off almost 5 hours earlier, so. Like an idiot, I opened the door again. Hello? Hi, was there a little girl here a moment ago? Yeah. She asked to use my phone and then just ran off. She is here. At that, I was confused. Where is she? I asked, and he looked at me like I was crazy and just pointed at the ground next to him. She is standing right here, he said sternly. He was very, very clearly the only human in the hallway, a long straight hallway with no corners to hide around. At that point, my panic was through the roof. Oh, yeah, right, I said. He just shook his head and said, she should have not done that. She will not be doing that again. I meekly said, it wasn't a big deal. And then he cut me off and raised his voice slightly and just repeated, she should not have done that. Understand? At this point, I'm pretty sure this dude is about to murder me over an invisible girl standing next to him, so I just say, yes, I understand, of course. And he replied, we apologize for this. Enjoy your night. And then he walked away. I called my boyfriend right away and told him the whole story. He agreed that it was weird, but was super busy, so he couldn't talk long. I reassured the whole apartment was locked up and opened up a beer to calm my nerves. Time passed until he got home, and we hung out for about an hour, then went to sleep. The entire night, neither of us really slept a wink. We were both absolutely burning up and shivering and breaking out in cold sweats and having night terrors. By 8 in the morning, we were both dizzy and coughing and had fevers, and later that day, my boyfriend tested positive for COVID. He lasted roughly 2 weeks, and survived. Mine, however, just cleared up about a week ago, after having turned into one of the worst and longest running sicknesses that I've ever had. I'm still getting over it and getting my breath back. I haven't seen the child or that maintenance worker since that night. That's the last time I ever let a kid into my house. Edit. It's been asked a couple times, so the girl's eyes were incredibly dark, if not black or damn close. Just not Anne all over black, like I've heard him described in some black-eyed kids encounters. Just somewhat black. Alright, and that is the last Reddit story we have for today on this subject and this cryptid. I mostly covered some of this with personal experiences because this is a cryptid that actually has been experienced throughout not only history but the modern day. This story dealt with COVID. So this thing really hits close to home, even in terms of today versus like in the 1950s, like I mentioned in the research. So I also want to go into another thing that wasn't mentioned in my research, but that's just because it's really conjecture, but there are a couple reports and I wasn't able to find the story where I read it from, but there is some theories that suggest that the black-eyed kids are related and somehow to the Men in Black, which is probably something I'm going to cover in the next couple episodes myself. But the Men in Black, yeah, if they're connected to them, that kind of leads credence to one of my theories that I'm going to be getting into here in a second. But the Men in Black are notorious for being associated with aliens and interdimensional beings. So, I don't know. I'll get into that with my theories, but speaking of, we'll start getting into that right now with theory number 1. This is a supernatural entity. I could believe that with the Men in Black thing that I've read, and I can't prove because I can't find the article. I kind of have a different theory that goes along with it, but this could very well just be a form of a demon or a lost child's soul. I'm part of the people, the group that believes that children's souls can't be locked to this area, but I think that's a little ignorant to think that if one person's soul is locked here, another person's can't. So it's very possible. I will lead credence into that. They could be supernatural, just ghosts and stuff like that. So it is very possible for that theory. It leads into theory 2, which is, oh my god, you guys are going to love this, that they are aliens. Some theorists have speculated, I should say, sorry, I have horrible grammar, that these black-eyed kids are actually aliens from another planet. And I think, honestly, personally, that's probably the craziest theory I have. No. If aliens have technology to imitate us, they wouldn't do it with black eyes, They would make it a little more realistic. I'm sorry, I gotta discredit that theory. I don't think that is. That is just a theory that I got off of the site where I researched this from. So, number 3, they are from a different dimension. Even though that one sounds more crazy, I believe that more than the aliens theory. They already proved there are different dimensions out there. So, this could very well be from a dimension that has black-eyed kids. Who's to say? I do think it's very unlikely. I will say that. And I think, if anything, number 1 is the strongest theory right now. So, again, you guys are more than welcome to give your comments and opinions down below, so I will not argue that. You guys are all welcome to your opinion. So, number 4 is just that they're normal kids. These kids, maybe it's just a matrix of the light or something. This one's actually pretty believable too. I do think, though, that there are too many accounts and first-hand experiences to discredit all of it, with it just being normal kids and maybe just a trick of the light, seeing darker eyes than they have. But it is a reasonable explanation. So I will say that I don't believe number 4, the it's just normal kids, isn't true, but it's possible. So, and number 5, as always, it's just a tall tale or a hoax. It's very possible this thing is just like, every other cryptid on the planet. Not every other cryptid, most cryptids, because I do believe a lot of them exist, but people just make up these things. And I will go into what I believe this creature could be if they do exist to some extent, but I don't believe these creatures themselves exist. I think it would be something called a tulpa, which, like I said, I will go into in a different episode. It could be a hoax. It could always be a hoax. That's the thing with being an investigator or a cryptologist. You gotta, a cryptozoologist, sorry. You gotta expect it to be faked or something explainable every time. You can't just go into it being like, that's weird, that's gotta be supernatural. So that could be a possibility too. Now, I just want to delve into the Men in Black thing again. The story, from what I remember, is a kid coming to the door, asking to asking to come in for like a glass of water or something like that, and saying, "Oh, my dad will be here soon to pick me up." And soon enough, uh, 2 bald white men who looked pretty much identical in suits show up in a car, a fancy car. Didn't say anything, just stood by the car door with it open, and the kid ran out and they left. So, and the husband of the pair kind of convulsed on the floor while the kid was there. So that kind of leads credence into the thoughts and the theories that whenever you let them in, they cause some serious damage, which I mentioned before. So, whether you believe the black-eyed kids exist, the black-eyed kids are something dangerous and terror-inducing. So, I will definitely say avoid them if you ever come in contact with them. I would not recommend sticking around if you ever encounter one, but let me know what you all think via my Facebook page, which, as you know, is Tales for the Dark Creepy Internet Stories. I can always post another link to the page and link to my personal Facebook. Otherwise, you know my name, Devin Zahn. Just look me up, and you can PM me that way too with suggestions, a link to the page, whatever you need. I'm here for you. And with that, let's get into our closing segment. So as always, we'll be getting into our new listeners. We are going to go pretty quick today because we have so many, and I don't want to keep this too long. So without further delay, let's get into our new listeners. We've got Mackenzie H, so thank you. I've got Nate J and Rasputina, who have been very fantastic and active on the page, so thank you very much. I've got Crystal H, Alyssa E, Nicole K, who is my aunt, I will say. Thank you for joining, Nicole. Mary Lou D, Jax B, Stuart D, Frederick O, Paul B, who again is also a very avid listener and very active on the page, so thank you very much for that. Courtney Catherine Noel H. Alright, let me scroll up here. Brittany M. Hey, that's my sister's name, but I actually think you know my sister too. And I know you're a brother, to be honest. We got Crystal L. Sorry. I gotta scroll up through a lot of this, don't I? Casey A. Andrew K. Brianna V, Tabitha N, Amigo Orte Amigo, which I can say because I know that's not his real name. And you already know who you are, Justin. You're dating my sister, and, well, you're already part of the family, so I would not worry about that. Not that you are, but we all love you already. So, next is Militia L. We'll call Militia L. I'm not going to say the last name, as always. Matt Y, Ruby L, Joel B, Mary Ann M, Michael R, Marcus A, Kimberly S, Joshua E, Becca M, Robin S, Brittany F, Nicholas M, David B, another person who has been very instrumental in getting this off the ground floor, because he's been very engaging on the profile for our Facebook page, as well as giving me suggestions and personal messages. So I really do appreciate you, because you have been kind of the driving force behind this, one of the big driving forces. So thank you, David. We got D King S, Shane S, Jonathan H, which I am going to give a shout out to, because I actually just started a job where I work with Jonathan, and even tonight he was amazing, just even keeping my mind level. I mean, you're a good friend, dude. Really appreciate it. Moving on from there, I gotta scroll up here. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I gotta scroll up a lot. We got David S, Andrea L, Erica A, Jordan Nicole C, Brandon S, Todd H, Silas R, and then we got Stephen M. So Stephen M is another huge contributor to this page. He's been engaging for a while now, to be honest, and he's kind of kept track every step of the way. So feel free to shoot me a PM, dude, if you got any suggestions or anything. I really do appreciate it, because I really do appreciate all the posts you have been making on the Facebook page. And yeah, that doesn't go unnoticed at all. So thank you, Steven. Leads into Marissa S, Neil M, Taylor T, Carmen Michelle W. Now, Carmen, I will also stop on, because she was my former boss before I got into Buffalo Wild Wings, and I just want to say I really do appreciate all the opportunities and the things you've given to me, because, I mean, I don't know, you were a good boss. It wasn't you that made me leave, it was everything that happened. I just want you to know that if you do end up listening to this. Next, it would be Tori G. Then we got Isabel M, Charles H, Daniel M, Amber Lynn K, another great co-worker I used to work with, Amir Suba. Oh, I shouldn't have said the last name. I'm very sorry if that was not what you wanted. But thank you very much, Amir, for joining. Probably should not have said the last name. I don't even know if that's real, but still. Right, next one, we got Bradley S, Bailey R H, or Bailey R W, I should say. I really need to wear my glasses more, don't I? Ooh. Morgan S, Jenny M, Anne Marie K, Sarah J, Angela J, Kayla B, Victoria B, Ja N, Allie J. Oh god, I can't pronounce this one. This one's all crazy characters. I'm gonna say it's O
okay. I'm going to say the full one on that one because that's obviously not your real name. It's okay. All in unique text. I don't know what that is. Okay. But I like your emote. I mean, your profile picture. That's pretty cool. Not saying your name's not cool, but still. Next, we got Tess M. I'm just gonna say Tess M because I couldn't even pronounce your name even if I accidentally wanted to. And then last but certainly not least, I got Chance V. And Chance, I gotta say, man, you and me. I mean, we've gone through some shit. I mean, maybe not shit together, but you've been in situations where I've been involved, and I'm just happy to know that anything I've been reported to do does not, turn you off because I really didn't do any of those things. So that concludes our shout outs for this episode. I'm sorry I didn't go into too much depth this time with it, but we had a decent amount of them and I didn't have the time to do them all. So, because that would make this into like a 2-hour episode, and an hour of that would be just shout outs. So, with that, I'm going to get into the final part of this episode, which is going to be my final plugs and my goodbye, I guess. So, as you all know, I am on Facebook at Tales for the Dark Creepy Internet Stories. I also have a second podcast that will probably have its first episode out by the time this episode premieres. And that podcast is called That Spooky Murder Show. Now, that's a show I'm doing with my sister. It's another podcast. I might be starting a third podcast in the future. I haven't decided. I'm still kind of testing the waters with that. But our first episode for that second podcast should be out before this one even comes out. So I will post a link on the page if you haven't seen it already. But as for our stories today, what do you guys think? Shoot me a message. Post something on the Facebook page. Send me an email at talesforthedarkcis@gmail.com. And just let me know what you think. Give me some suggestions. Send me your stories. I will read them on the podcast. Get your voice heard. But other than that, I don't really know what else I have left to say. So I'm going to sign off. This is Tales for the Dark, episode 5, and I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and send some stuff in. From the Zon Cellar, I'm out.